Right, I now invite Stephanie Greenland to come up and speak with us. Stephanie is an educator who's been working in the Disability and Community Inclusion Unit and the School of Education at Flinders University. Her passion for sport led to an interest in making sport accessible for all people. Stephanie currently works also with Inclusive Sport SA, and next year's Diversity Conference will actually be handed over from the Office for Recreation and Sport to ISA, Inclusive Sport SA, to manage for the next 3 years. So we look forward to that, of course. And Stephanie, over to you.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, yes, it is the last presentation of the day. It's been a very big and long day, and as I say to my Friday afternoon uni students, grab a couple of more lollies that you have on your table, and 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. So the great thing about today that the Office for Rec and Sport have put on a great day, and a lot of the key messages that I've got for you today and the things that I want to share, they have already been covered, and Paul also highlighted that as well from Julia's presentation and so on and so forth. But what I want to question you about today is to think about inclusion. Where do I stand? This is a question many of us should be asking ourselves in our roles at state sporting organisations and sport and recreation clubs. And if you haven't asked yourself this question before, you will certainly reflect on it after today. In regards to inclusion within our roles, and yes, I said within our roles, and as it has been covered before, it is not inclusion and our roles because it's not a separate entity, it's not an add-on. It should be embedded within our delivery of service to our community on a daily basis. However, to embed inclusion within our roles, we often ask or say to ourselves, what's involved for me? What else do I have to do? And the thought of, I'd hate to do the wrong thing. Already our belief in our own ability is limited, and the fear is that the belief will not exist at all. The impact this has if we keep turning away and not challenging our thoughts with ways to achieve inclusion within our roles is that the gap of segregation can increase, and the personal and social development that can be learnt through sport can be missed for particular audiences. Last year, Inclusive Sport SA conducted a pilot study in partnership with Flinders University, examining inclusive practices in South Australian sport and recreation clubs. The types of things we're hearing from local clubs, along with the low feelings of self-belief, which you can see by this quote up here on screen, was the actual act of not knowing how to be inclusive, how to make change happen. The Australian Sports Commission defines inclusion as providing a range of options for all people. However, from our pilot study, it was recorded that views of inclusion were varied and reflected different aspects of the diagram on the screen on your left: exclusion, separation, integration, or inclusion. Lots of variations of this. In order to move beyond inclusion being that buzzword, it needs to be ingrained, as highlighted through previous presentations today. We need to view inclusion as an opportunity to enhance sustainability of our state sporting organisations. And as Emma Sherry said at last year's conference, this is strategically imperative. For some sports and clubs, their traditional and conventional ways within their sports is all they've ever known. And that's at no fault of their own. However, communities are dynamic. And from the data that you've seen today, that just shows us how dynamic they are. So this afternoon, I'm here to share with you 3 resources in the forms of a personal resource, a digital resource, and one that you can take away from today. Firstly, a personal resource. The Inclusive Sport SA Inclusive Club Development Project is a 3-year project which aims to support state sporting organisations in developing proactive approaches to inclusion in South Australia. It aims to assist your clubs by working with you to look at what you're doing at your level. This project is almost a branch of Star Club as it tackles one goal at a time. This will help you to further connect to your communities through the following ways. Firstly, in development of the project, we wanted to determine where your organisation was at in regards to inclusion. Is this something you discuss? Is it on the agenda but never really gets covered? Or are you actively working towards it across all roles of your organisation? This baseline measure will give you a starting point as it asks about the things you are currently doing, and it will highlight to you things for further consideration. And secondly, this is where goals can be created from the results of the baseline measure. This is facilitated by the Inclusion Advisor at Inclusive Sport SA and includes a review of the results to set realistic and achievable goals to work towards over a 12-month period. The third step of the Inclusive Club Development Project is designing your process of how you will achieve that goal over a 12-month period. And again, this is facilitated by the Inclusion Advisor, and your progress is monitored over that 12 months. You might find at some stages that you make mistakes or that a couple of your steps are unclear and you might have to take a step back. Or you might need to grab a coffee with someone and just chat about it and debrief about what's going on. And it's okay, and it's been highlighted again today, mistakes happen. This process of evaluation is great because it does take time, it doesn't happen overnight. Once these changes are implemented and there has been excess from that one goal, and even if it has taken 12 months to achieve, you can then set another goal, adding another layer to building your inclusive culture within your sports. To access this project, you simply visit our website and register your interest. We're only a phone call or an email away, so please contact us. Again, it's been highlighted relationships and partnerships within the industry are vital for our sustainability, so please come and say hello. Our second resource is through a digital platform. The Inclusive Facilities Tool is a collaborative project between Flinders University, Inclusive Sport SA and the Office for Recreation and Sport. We identified a need for this resource 18 months ago and since then have been developing an online guide for sports to assess their facility in a number of areas around inclusion. The aim of this tool is to go beyond the minimum building standards of a sport facility and consider other areas which contribute to building an inclusive culture. The tool provides information across 5 key areas: communication, culture, environment, management, and physical access. As you move through the tool, it asks you reflective questions within these 5 areas. And this is just a snapshot of one theme, but there are 30 alone within physical access, and then you've got the other 4 key areas as well. The explanations in the topic areas are written in an easy read format. You can view links to existing resources about that particular topic. And then you can look at how you can do it, using low-cost solutions or professional services. This tool will be available for anyone to access, and it will be a digital platform on its own, managed by those involved with the project. As we are still in the development stage of this tool, we'd like you to register your interest for when it does become available. And from some of you that we've already spoken to, and you've heard about this idea already back in INET in February, a lot of people are looking for this resource. So we are moving in the right direction, which is really good. So as you can see, you can contact myself to register your interest in the tool. And we're also currently working with organisations and sport clubs to pilot particular areas of the tool for its sustainability and also practicality. We anticipate this resource will be of benefit to a wide audience, and we're very excited when the time comes to actually launching the complete tool. The final resource I'm sharing with you today is a resource to take away. And firstly, we've got a clip to get you guys thinking.
We have all heard the buzzwords around sport and recreation, but do we know what they mean? Let's look at inclusion. What's inclusion? Where do I start? Who do I talk to? How can I be inclusive? Sounds like more work to me. To many, it seems like inclusion is out of reach. We all have fears of the unknown, and we avoid things that we don't want to get wrong. So what makes a sport club inclusive? The heart of inclusion is putting the person first. The 7 pillars of inclusion are a starting point to guide you and your club on how you can be inclusive. Reflect on your attitude and the attitude of others in the club. Do you put the person first? An inclusive club is one where everyone is listened to with respect and where decisions are made together. You don't need to know everything. Sometimes you just need to know where to start. An inclusive club does not say we can't. They say together we can.
So I want you to think about the key messages that were in this video, in the video just shown, and what is it saying to you? And if it's not, if you already understand the message of inclusion, can you think of someone that you're working with who isn't quite there yet? Is this a video that you can show them to start that conversation? Alongside this video is a poster, and it's actually been in the foyer all today next to the registration table, and it literally reflects your image. This poster tells you how you can champion inclusion, and there's one available on each of your tables to have a look at and take home today. From our pilot study, a theme that was evident was that there are people who are currently championing inclusion in sport in South Australia. And you can probably think of people in your sports who are currently doing that. Joey Wright identified himself as the person this morning who's doing this. And Julia also highlighted, and it was again picked up in our study, what if that one person left tomorrow? What would happen? And when I asked this question in our pilot study, and this is from local clubs that report to you guys as state sporting organisations, they said it would fall down. No one would look after inclusion because they were that sole person, but it wasn't embedded within that entire club, which I think speaks volumes. This poster gives you ways to champion inclusion through promoting your commitment, celebrating the wins on and off the field, creating equitable opportunities across all club roles, and leading by example. And that's the version that's on your table to take home today. So in review, today I've shared with you a personal resource, a digital resource, and something to take away, along with the many other resources that have been shared from previous presentations. So again, I ask you, where do you stand now? And where do you want to be standing? What can you take back to your organisation from today, from the resources, from the top tips, in order to change the status of inclusion within your organisation? Where do you stand? Something I want to leave you with as well is Maya's thoughts. People will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did. but people will never forget how you made them feel. Sport is a platform to create this feeling for all ages, all abilities, and all backgrounds. So again, where do you stand? Thank you very much. And I can take some questions, I think, as well, if there's any. That's good. No, Emily.
My name's Emily Ailes. I'm the Recreation Officer at Novita Children's Services. Just have you got an example, Steph, of when you've implemented some strategies and helped a club or sporting organisation for inclusion?
Yes. I'm thinking back to Emily, and we've worked together previously. We originally, through Inclusive Sport SA, I worked on the transition project for 2 years. Excuse me. And that was assisting individuals with a disability transition into a mainstream sport. A quick snapshot of that project, we created 53 individual plans for people with a disability. So it included, 6 or 7 different steps to progress into a mainstream sport. Of those plans, 23 people actually started their plan, and in the end, 7 people successfully transitioned, which was 30%, which is a great 30% to celebrate. And you're probably thinking, what were the main reasons why it wasn't quite successful, and also what were the reasons why some of them were so successful. And I'll share with you the reasons why those 7 people were successful. It was because, firstly, the environments were already set up at the clubs of having that inclusive culture. So in terms of the work that I did to facilitate that process, I was there as an individual supporting that person one-on-one. But also the club knew I only went to the training a couple of times with a couple of participants I'm thinking of. And the club knew that they could touch base with me, I guess, if they needed me, but it was quite interesting. I didn't have to do much at some clubs because they were already set up. It might have been working with some coaches to think about how they're delivering their session. One participant I'm thinking of now, the athlete had an intellectual disability, and he was quite upset and frustrated after a lot of training sessions. And how the coach, I guess, verbalised how he needs to improve his times, it wasn't getting through. And improvements weren't being made. And so I ended up working with the coach to say, okay, hang on, take a step back and look at the big picture. You've attempted this a few times now and there hasn't been an improvement. Reflect on what you're doing as a coach in terms of how you're communicating to support him best, to improve him best. So he actually changed and did a lot of visual demonstration for him, not just physically but also on paper as well, to be able to communicate and get across to him, this is what you need to do, because verbally it wasn't happening. So the coach needed to adapt his style. Yeah.
I can just jump in. I'd just like to share a personal story that happened to me on the weekend with my family that I think can demonstrate the power of sport. So my husband has been coaching our son's AFL team for a few years. My son's a very reluctant AFL player, particularly more so when your father's the coach, and decided that he didn't want to play AFL anymore. So my husband came home, looked at our 2 daughters, decided he'd start a girls' team at the club for our younger daughter. Went to the club. They said, oh, okay, I don't know if anyone would be interested, but, have a crack. Started putting the feelers out, who'd be interested in playing under 14 girls AFL. I came home and our oldest daughter said, well, why isn't there a team for me? But you're not allowed to coach it. So that club this year now has 3 girls AFL teams for the first time. They played their first games on the weekend. When our under-14s team ran out, the team they were playing had arranged for their boys who played the game before to actually form a guard of honour for the girls team when they ran out. So I said to my husband, right, when we go to the under-18s game for your club, let's get the boys that played beforehand to line up for those girls. And so I spent Sunday afternoon at an AFL ground where, first of all, the boys team lined up and the girls team ran out. And our under-18s team, that comprises girls from a wide range of backgrounds in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, including a number of Indigenous players who are boarders at one of the local schools, played a team from Western Sydney where a number of the players play in the full headscarf and full neck-to-knee clothing. And as I was sitting there watching the girls run out, the club president said to me, "Wow, how did this happen in such a short space of time? Who would have thought? Not only do we have 1 girls team, now we have 3. And it just really struck me the power of sport to have made that happen fairly quickly, and that I could see in the blink of an eye, it seemed completely normal to both the boys that were there, that there would be girls teams playing, and for my daughters that they would be playing against a team from the western suburbs of Sydney with girls that it would be fair to say they don't normally come into contact with. And that just really struck me, knowing I was coming here today, to think about the power of sport to create opportunities for people that they wouldn't get in their day-to-day lives.
Thank you. It's so true. Sport is very powerful. Those stories really resonate, I think, for a lot of people. Thanks very much, Stephanie. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And Susan, thank you. That's great. I know it's the end of a lot